Hello all, I'm Shubhra Sinha and this is the third lecture of Module 3 of the Stress Management course. In this lecture, we will deal with frustration and its relationship with the stress. Let's have a quick recap. We are going to talk about the relationship of frustration and stress, how this frustration leads to various signs and symptoms, and finally, we will talk about the frustration aggression theory. So, frustration arises from the inability to fulfill one's needs, wants, and desires easily and conveniently. It is inherently present in everyday life, but when it becomes overwhelming, it can hinder one's determination and desire for success. When faced with the situation that one can easily adapt to, frustration is never a factor. However, in face of frequent obstacles, tension and stress are amplified. Frustration and stress are very closely linked to each other. The concept of stress encompasses all demands on the body and mind, whereas frustration is a distinct emotional reaction to those demands. Stress has a potential to induce frustration, and long-lasting or severe frustration can heighten overall stress levels. We can experience different signs and symptoms when frustrated. Common emotional responses include anxiety, anger, and irritability. Behavioral changes that are accompanying frustration are withdrawal and apathy, and cognitive challenges associated with this phenomenon is difficulty in decision making and several concentration issues, just to name a few. These are a few signs and symptoms related with frustration, not all of them. The list can be long and it can vary from individual to individual. So we cannot arrive at a final list which says that this and these are the symptoms that can be experienced during frustration in case of all individuals. So the list can be different for different people. However, when frustration increases, when frustration occurs, it can increase the stress level, leading to emotional strain, chronic pressure, mental health issues like anxiety and depression, and also if the frustration continues for a long period of time, it can trigger long-term health problems like digestive issues, headaches, and physical health problems. Both HPA axis and the sympathetic adrenal medulla axis work here. There is an interesting hypothesis which is known as frustration aggression hypothesis. It tries to elaborate the link between frustration and aggressive behavior. Of course, this aggressive behavior and frustration is not free from stress. Stress is an integral part here. So the concept of frustration and aggression theory was put forth firstly by Dollard and his colleagues in 1939. This theory implies that aggression can be a likely result of blocked goal-directed behavior. So we have a goal in mind, we make efforts in order to achieve that goal, but somehow our efforts are not successful. There are several environmental factors which hinders with the goal attainment behavior. So when this goal attainment behavior is impaired, when it is blocked, often it may lead to frustration, and then the person experiencing frustration for quite some time can indulge in aggressive acts. So, if I talk about the original frustration aggression hypothesis, I called it original because there are several variations, several revisions of this hypothesis, and we will go through them one by one. So, the original hypothesis proposed that there is a direct causal link between frustration and aggression, and whenever a person feels frustrated, he or she will show some kind of aggression inevitably. So the aggression is the must outcome of frustration. We cannot, do away with this part if somebody is feeling frustrated. The theory also incorporates the psychoanalytic perspective of catharsis, means aggressive behavior is a way to let go the negative feelings which are there due to frustration. Inside an organism, we are feeling so many negative things because we are frustrated, because the goal directed behavior is blocked often by environmental obstacles, and therefore in order to release the pent up emotions, we indulge in aggressive behaviors. It also suggests that when the source of frustration is not clear, sometimes we simply feel irritated, and we cannot realize that what is actually making us feel irritated and frustrated. But we keep on feeling frustrated and irritated for quite some time. So what happens? The source of this feeling is not clear. If the source is not clear, what should we do? Or if the source is clear, but it is too powerful to be encountered. For example, the boss scolded me today, and I'm not in a condition to answer him back because I want to protect my job. I don't want to get fired from the organization. So I cannot answer him back directly. What will happen? A lot of negative feelings are generated within me, and in order to release them, I would search for a more safer situation. I would search a more, benign target to release those negative emotions. This process is called displacement. So I'm actually moving my emotions away from the source of frustration to somebody who cannot harm me that much. More accessible target, more safer target is selected. A practical example is to release your anger on your children when you are very upset due to anything or something happened at your workplace, because you cannot answer back in your workplace. You simply come irritated home, and then you released all your negative emotions to your children because they are readily available and they cannot harm you. Okay. And then you have a confidence that you will be able to compensate for the situation. You will quickly make up for the situation even if they get upset. So displacement also happens here in this model. The main limitation of this model is that it is too simplistic. The frustration does not always lead to aggression, and aggression can occur sometimes without prior frustration. Both things are frequently observed in our daily life. So the limitation lead people to revise the original frustration aggression hypothesis, and one such revision comes from Berkowitz in the year 1969, then 1989. He kept on revising his model. Here the core principle is the frustration creates a readiness for aggression rather than directly causing it. So if somebody is frustrated, he or she may show aggressive act, but it is not necessary that the moment I feel frustrated, I immediately start performing aggressive activities. Aggressiveness or aggression rather will occur only if certain aggressive cues are present in the environment. So I'm full of negative feeling, I'm very much frustrated, I'm ready to go for something aggressive in my action, but I need a stimulus from the environment. If somebody stimulates me, if somebody triggers me, I will show the aggressive act. If I'm not triggered, my pent up negative emotions may fade out with time. Here, the important concepts are negative affect. Berkowitz emphasized the role of negative emotions, which are triggered by frustration. And he proposed that frustration leads to anger and other unpleasant feelings, which in presence of aggressive cues can increase the likelihood of aggressive behavior. So I'm frustrated. I'm feeling so many negative emotions, which makes me ready to express these emotions in the form of aggressive act. But I also need a cue from the environment, a trigger, a stimulus which can hit this aggressive action from me. Then aggressive cues are the environmental stimuli which are associated with aggression. For example, if I see a weapon, it can prime the aggressive thought and behaviors in an already aroused person. So many times we hear in news that in a school in America, a 14 years old boy took out a gun and he shoot so many classmates and then the teacher and sometimes himself as well. So the person is frustrated for some reason and then he has a weapon in his hands which may act as an aggressive cue. Then the significance of this revision is in the fact that it provides a more nuanced understanding by incorporating situational factors and emotional states in the frustration-aggression link proposed in the original model. Another revision done by Berkowitz came in the year 1990 and 1993, and this is called the cognitive neoassociation theory. In further revisions, Berkowitz suggested that the cognitive processes involved in aggression are very important. It means that the aversive event means something which has triggered frustration, or sometimes frustration itself can be an aversive event. It leads to negative affect, we all know that, which automatically activates a network of associated thoughts, feelings, and memories related to both fight and flight. What does it mean exactly? It means that if somebody is feeling frustrated, you leave the person alone, he or she may remind of the memories which are of similar kind, the memories of anger, the memories of unpleasant interactions with people in the past, the memories of frustration in the past, everything he will remind. He will remember again and again. So what happens? That this initial activation is automatic and is based on primitive associations. Higher order cognitive processing can then influence the interpretation of the situation and the resulting behavior. So the initial interaction was very small. It was very minor. A small thing happened, a small conflict happened which does not carry much weightage. But because it triggers the past memories of more intense conflicts with the same person, it triggers the memories of more unpleasant experiences in the past in the same context. Now the person is ready to respond with a greater rigor, with a greater intensity as he or she could have been if the reaction was solely based on the present interaction, which was not very big. Then role of priming is also there. Exposure to aggressive stimuli can prime aggressive thoughts and make aggressive responses more likely when negative affect is experienced. For example, the role of mass media. Media usually glorifies people enacting aggressive behaviors. We know that if we are frustrated, if we are angry, this is normal to hit somebody or scream at someone or break something. We have learned it through media, maybe through real life exposure also. And that is why the first thing which comes to my mind when I feel full of negativity is to break something, or is to hit somebody, or to scream at someone. It also talks about the effect of emotions and emphasizes them a lot. Unlike the original hypothesis, which solely focuses on frustration, this cognitive neo-association theory posits that any unpleasant experience can virtually lead to aggression through negative affect. Anything which is unpleasant, we may be feeling anxiety, a lot of worry, or any other kind of negative emotion, it can lead to aggression. And finally, Bandura in the year 1977 came up with social learning theory, which explained the concept of aggression a little bit more. Albert Bandura's social learning theory offers an alternative perspective on how aggressive behavior is acquired and expressed. In earlier three models, we talked about the link between frustration and aggression, either directly or mediated by situational cues, negative affect, cognitive processes, anything. But we were talking about frustration as the antecedent condition of aggression. And frustration is basically a result of stress as well as a precursor to intensify stress. The social learning theory, on the other hand, provides an alternative link between frustration and aggression. And how it does so? It emphasizes that aggression is a learned behavior. It is learned through observation, imitation, and reinforcement. Observation means we must have people showing aggressive behavior around us. By observing them, we learn such behaviors. For example, if parents shout at their children, if they slap their children, or somebody screaming at someone else, we can observe and we can learn all these aggressive behaviors. We can repeat them. Imitation means repeating such behaviors in similar situations. So if person A was screaming, I should scream too. Maybe it is the appropriate behavior to show. And finally, when this behavior is reinforced by positive outcomes, what happens? Father shows aggression against son, and the son gets immediately ready to abide by his command. Now the son also learns that if I want to make somebody agree, if I want somebody to comply with my commands, I need to show aggression. And that is how aggression is learned and transmitted from one generation to another. Then what he says, that cognitive factors such as attention, retention, reproduction, and motivation. Attention means attending something, retention means remembering what you have attended, reproduction, repeating the same behavior, and motivation means you have an intention to perform aggressive behaviors, also play a very crucial role in the occurrence of aggressive behaviors from people. Frustration must be there as a trigger. We have already learned aggressive behavior. We know how aggressive behaviors are done, why aggressive behaviors are important, what are the positive reinforcements or positive outcomes we can expect out of doing those aggressive behaviors. And when the stage is set, frustration comes as a trigger, as an environmental stimulus which precipitates those aggressive activities. So if aggression has been a successful way to cope with frustration in past, or if aggressive responses are socially normative, socially sanctioned in such situations, the person is most likely to indulge in that kind of behavior. This was the proposition of social learning theory by Bandura. So these were the linkages which try to explain the relationship between frustration and aggression. So far, we have been discussing about these two things without taking the name of stress. But, dear friends, it must be clear to you that stress be there as an antecedent, as a symptom, and also as a consequence of both frustration and aggression. If you are free from stress, or at least the stress is not have gone up to a very extreme level, such kind of behaviors may not occur at all. So stress is everywhere, pervasive in both these phenomena of frustration and aggression. This week, we are talking about the related concepts. I must repeat this thing again, that adjustment problems, frustration, conflicts in life, all these things give rise to stress, and they also come as a part and parcel of a stress. So, stress is there. Of course, we are taking the name stress less in these lectures during module 3. That's all for today's lecture. Let's have a quick recap. So, in this lecture, we have talked about the frustration which arises as an inability to fulfill one's need, want, and desire easily and conveniently due to frequent obstacles from external environment, sometimes internal environment also. We also talked about the signs and symptoms and effects of frustration, and then we talked about the frustration aggression hypothesis and its reasons provided by different researchers to explain the link between them. These are the references and recommended readings for you. And thank you so much for your kind attention. Thank you.